A meeting of the Washington County Commission developed into public debate on injection wells. Our Chase Campbell has the details.
The Washington County Commissioners met Thursday morning, handling routine county business before a charged public comment period centered on injection wells. Local advocate Dee Arnold, a member of Washington County for Safe Drinking Water, told the commissioners that Washington County now ranks first among all 88 Ohio counties in total fracking waste injected since 2010.
The total oil and gas wastewater injected in Washington County into Class II wells since 2010 is 3.1 billion gallons.
She pressed all three commissioners on why they've declined to sign a moratorium backed by several public entities in the county, including multiple water authorities and the city of Marietta. Each commissioner deferred to the state agencies that regulate the wells.
We are supportive of how things are regulated and how things are permitted, when it comes to these wells, okay?
It's not we hear what you say, and obviously we're all for clean water. That's number one priority. But that's not a decision that we get to make.
What the Board of Commissioners can't do is make a ruling with the EPA or the state. They control those entities and decide what goes in the ground or not. The Board of Commissioners can't decide that.
The commissioners referred back to a statement they released last year in which they described meeting with officials from the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency and Department of Natural Resources and the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection. According to the commissioner's statement, all of these regulators described injection wells as safe. The statement also notes that there's no documented instance of an injection well contaminating drinking water in either Ohio or West Virginia. County Job and Family Services Director Flight Fryman also addressed the board, noting that he had a professional encounter with an injection well prior to working for the county.
10 years ago, when I was in private practice as a private attorney, I represented the Washington County Career Center when it had an injection well.
Fryman went on to defend deep injection as the safest disposal method, citing state and federal regulators, echoing the commissioner's position. Fryman asserted that because modern injection wells are drilled far deeper than older wells or drinking water aquifers, they don't pose a threat.
This in water is injected 6,000 feet below the surface of the earth. 6,000 feet. That's more than a mile. You can do a lot of things with water, but you can't move it up.
Arnold and fellow resident George Banzinger pushed back, arguing that brine migration has already been documented in southeastern Ohio, including in neighboring Athens and Noble counties, and that the region's geology, riddled with old, often undocumented oil and gas wells, makes Washington County particularly vulnerable.
All of this mass of brine waste is finding the easiest way to migrate, and it's migrating through orphan wells and traditional vertical wells.
No action was taken on injection wells during the meeting. In other business, the commissioners approved the week's bills. They also approved 3 fund transfers, 4 then and now payments, and travel requests for Children's Services staff. The board tabled an appointment to the Behavioral Health Board pending a conflict of interest review, approved a standard jail contract with Muskingum County, and signed an MOU with the Village of South Zanesville. The commissioners also approved a letter of support for Memorial Health System's effort to recruit international medical professionals. In Marietta, Chase Campbell, WTAP News.